Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take on an Okuma reel. It's a very large reel. It's appropriate for saltwater or Great Lakes fishing, surf casting. We had done a little segment on this a while ago. It says 16 ball bearings inside this reel. That's kind of interesting in and of itself. But the owner tells me that it's got a skip. Now, I know the owner, and that it could be dirt. It could be lack of maintenance. It could be some other things. We've had some reels in here in the past that kind of you fish them until something goes wrong with them and don't do much in between. But another interesting thing, other than that high number of ball bearings, is that as you examine the side plate here, there are no exterior screws to take this side plate off. Now that's probably a matter of design. It's probably good design. My guess is that we're going to have to start by taking the rotor off to expose some screws holding the top lips in. And then we probably have a catch down here. And then once we remove this bump guard or extended bump guard, we will probably find a screw or two or three inside here holding that side plate on. But the only way we're going to know about that is to get started. And we'll get started by taking off those pieces. So I'm going to remove the handle. If I remember, this handle's got a little nut behind it, so it's kind of a two-piece handle almost. Yep. And then you want to unscrew the nut there as well. That'll give you the access you need to get into the main gear, or get it out of the main gear, if you will. So the Okuma reels are nice reels. They're very dependable. This is the model V65A. It says it's in the V system. I'm not quite sure what the V system means, but I guess we'll find out. So I took the handle off, and as I continue to take off the exterior pieces and parts, I want to take a moment to thank our essential workers and first responders, everybody who's keeping us safe during the pandemic. You show up every day to deal with the issues that the pandemic presents. I thank you for it. Nothing much going on here. Underneath, just that extended click ring. On the upside of that is the drag washers. We'll come back to the drag washers in a moment, because that's one of two candidates as to why this thing can be skipping. Okay, so we'll continue. We want to remove the two shim rings here. And then we have a little collar here that has two screws that are going to hold the rotor nut cap in place. And you'll notice as I'm taking the pieces and parts off that I'm putting them into a parts tray. It's the bottom of a milk jug, and it serves me well. There's a whole host of ways that you can store your parts or organize your parts as they come off. You might want to lay them out on a mat on your bench in the sequence that you took them off in. You may have other preferred ways to do it. I just I kind of like keeping them all in a central place so I know where to look for them when it comes time to do the reinstall. Especially small parts like these, they kind of break off, get lost on the desk pretty quickly. Okay, I also recommend that you take pictures along the way, particularly if you don't have a schematic diagram of the reel, because that'll help you when you go to put it back. And I just removed the cap, and I noticed that we have a shim washer here. So you want to pay attention to that. I'm going to put that right inside the cap so I don't lose that. And then we going to have some sort of a rotor nut here, so I'm going to need a deep socket, I think. You can probably get along possibly with the 13 or 14 millimeter wrench. It's a pretty big rotor nut. It's going to be the 14. And I keep all my tools close at hand. That way, when I need them, I don't need to put the reel down. And this comes out in a non-traditional or clockwise manner of a screw out. So note that when you go to put it back. And then I'm just going to put that right inside that cap as well, so that I don't lose track of that. All right, I guess this is the big reveal. We're going to find out how that bump guard is held on once we remove the rotor. So the rotor comes up, and sure enough, we have two screws, one on each side, that are holding that bump guard in place. And they're kind of small threaded, so don't use a screwdriver that doesn't fit the screw. The reason for that is if you strip those threads on that screw, well, you're in trouble. So let's get these two out. And if you're taking pictures along the way, this is a good place to take the pictures. You can see that we have the The pinion gear up top here, it's held in by the 3. You can tell we have a couple of side plate screws involved up top. And I'm guessing that we have at least 2 more under this shield here, so we're going to go find that out. I'm just laying the 2 on the desk right now. I'm assuming that both of those screws are the same, and they are. But in case they weren't, you would want to make a note. And then I'm just going to go put them in the side of the case there, and then these should come out. Kind of an interesting little take on it. There you go. And be careful with these. They have tabs on the bottom of them. And if you have a tab in there and you're not careful, you're going to split the tab. And then you won't be able to keep that bump guard on. 1, 2, 3, 4 side plate screws. So let's go ahead and take those off. Those are kind of a through set screw, but you can also use a Phillips head driver. I like to start by putting the flat bladed screwdriver in to break the initial hold. Then I like to use the Phillips head screwdriver because it's got a better grip, but sometimes it doesn't seat properly in these screws. So once you get it initially loosed, if loosed is a word, then you can switch over to a Phillips head screwdriver and bring it out the rest of the way. So if you like the art of reel repair, if you like seeing reels and how they come together, or what the manufacturers do right or do differently, if you like to kind of explore the mechanics behind fishing reels, well, that's kind of what I'm doing on the channel as I try to pass along information on how to service the reels. And the best way to do that is to subscribe to my channel, and you'll see all of the ones that I post. If you hit the notifications, you'll see when I post them, and you'll be able to make a decision as to whether that reel is a video you want to watch and learn about. I do all kinds of reels. In this case, we're doing I guess the class would be a saltwater spinning reel. I do the freshwater ones or the smaller grade reels. I do a lot of saltwater because that's where we're located here on the mid-Atlantic coast. And I do a fair share of bait casters and saltwater trolling reels and everything in between. So a good way to do that, hit those notification buttons. You'll see them posted. You'll make a decision as to which ones you want to watch. So I've taken the 4 out. I guess now the question is which side comes off. So look at your handle. And the handle stem goes onto that side, so it's going to be removed from this side, which is why you had to take that nut off the handle there. And we should be able to get this off now. There you go. Metal case, always good to note. And this is kind of, I think, reinforcing what I was saying about the fella. There's a lot of dried, dirty grease in here. We're going to find out if there's anything that's really impacting the performance of the reel. For example, is there a broken piece of line in here or something? It'd be hard to get the line in there, but it wouldn't be impossible. Okay, there's 2 screws that are holding that axle shaft onto the crosswind block, so that's the next one you want to bring in. You have to take these screws out to release the axle shaft, because without taking the axle shaft off, you can't take the main gear out. Notice the 2 posts on each side. This is a good place to take a picture. There's 2 posts on each side that this crosswind block rides on as it goes up and down. You need to note that. Also note the position of the crosswind block. You have a short arm on this side and a longer extension on that side. So when you go to reinstall, you need to make sure that the short side is to your left, the long side to your right. Easy enough to turn this one upside down. You won't get the axle shaft in, but you will have a lot of fun trying to figure out what you did wrong if you didn't take that picture and have a reference point. I'm going to wipe this off. This is nice stainless, I think. Feels like a stainless. And a good way to do this one, you took those 2 screws out. A good way to remember where they go, because all these small screws going into a basket or into an assembly line now is starting to look the same, right? So take those 2, put them right back into the axle shaft. That's where you know how it goes. With that axle shaft removed, we should be able to remove the main gear. We were. and just a lot of dirt, which I kind of expected. And we have an elliptical gear behind here. That's always interesting. We're going to have to find the marks on the main gear and on the elliptical gear in order to get that set properly on the way back. These two should lift out just like that, and we got some cleanup to do here. So I'm going to wipe down that elliptical. Here's your one mark right here. So you need to pay attention to that. So the elliptical gear was put in place kind of as a way to avoid the top and bottoming of a reel. And it's supposed to be a smoother operation. I think it is. And it's a nice design. So kind of unusual in the sense that there's not more manufacturers doing it. But it is done. And I kind of like it. So we're going to take that elliptical gear off right now because we've got cleaning to do. To remove that elliptical gear, remove that little copper or brass piece first. Then you should be able to pull the elliptical gear out. There you go. You want to do that because you want to clean the junk underneath. But this is kind of my experience in the past with this particular reels owner. There's not a lot going on other than a lot of dirt and grease and the like. And it's kind of been my experience that it usually causes some trouble. All right, we have a little plastic wedge that goes on that elliptical gear. And now we can complete the cleaning of that. So when I clean a reel, I'm going to use the least abrasive of the pieces first. And then if I need, I will go ahead and use something more aggressive like a scrubby pad or steel wool or the like. But I'd like to get as much of this done with as soft a material as possible so that you don't scar anything. Alright, I got the majority of the stuff off of there, and I'm just going to flush it with some penetrating oil. In this case I'm using a WD-40, but it really doesn't matter to me. Any kind of penetrating oil generally works well. And I use it as a dissolver. I don't use it as a lubricant. It does say lubrication on the piece, but it's a light oil lubrication. And I want to use fishing reel oil when we go to lubricate the reels. All right, that's pretty good on the body there. So there's one more piece we'll remove now. We'll come up top and we will remove the pinion gear. So I'm going to leave the main gear out, the elliptical gear and its little stud out. Go ahead and pull these rods, make sure that that gets cleaned. So if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe about how to service the reel, or maybe you have a question about performance of the reel or anything like that, then if you leave that in the comments section, I'll be happy to provide you an answer if I know it, and I'll try and provide you direction if I don't know the answer, in terms of where you can get that answer. All right, that one's cleaned. Got a whole bunch of dirt and grease and grime on here, so let's get this out while we're at it. And I'm using cotton swabs. I just find out that they're good to reach and very disposable, and you don't necessarily need to worry too much about them. What I'm looking for right now as we continue to work on this reel is the reference points. There needs to be a reference point on here that corresponds. There it is. So you'll see we have the red line marked on this tooth. That is going to line up with the red dot on the other one. So when you go to reinstall, if you don't have them matched, the reel is not going to cycle correctly. Sort of like that little troublesome part of the reels with the Mitchell 300s. If you don't have that transition gear in the rack the right way with the 3 teeth, you're just not going to have it working. All right, we've oiled the bearings there, cleaned the other. Here's that back side of the oscillation gear, and I guess we have a bearing in there. Guess we got bearings all over the place here because it says it's got 16 ball bearings. That doesn't, that's a lot of ball bearings. Let's just say that. So we'll oil that one. This little thing goes underneath it. See if we can figure out how that goes, just like that. All right, those parts are done. Let's just pull the gear up top here. Pull that pinion gear and the ball bearing. I think I'm going to see 2 ball bearings in here if I remember. There's ball bearings everywhere. There was 2 bearings in the line guide. There was 2 bearings up on the spool. We should have a bearing and an anti-reverse inside here. Maybe we have 2 in one like Penn does. I'm not sure. But the Okuma reels have been around a long time. They originally were, I believe, German. And then they switched their production to Taiwan. And now I'm not sure if it's Taiwan or it's China where they're being made. But they are, they're made overseas now. Of course, they would have been made overseas in Germany as well. The 3 screws are all the same, so it doesn't matter which side we put them in on. We should just be able to pull this out now. All right, something's caught there. Not sure what that is. I'm just going to see if I can tap the main bearing out. We can. So what you want to do if you get stuck like this, go ahead and put the rotor back on now that you do not have a clamp there. Get your rotor nut. Remember, this one goes on opposite. What you're going to do is you're going to use this as a handle to pull the rest of the assembly out. It's just easier to walk it out that way than it is to beat yourself up. You saw how easy it came out just by changing your grip. All right, now remove that, remove this, remove that. And there's a lot of dirt and grease and junk in this gear, so maybe that's the cause of it. So you're kind of trying to eliminate reasons why the reel would skip. We still haven't done the drags, but if there's anything caught in the teeth of these, well, that could cause a problem as well. And you'll notice as I'm using a soft brush there, I'm scraping that towards me and onto paper towels so that I can make sure that it's not going to be transferred back to the next set of teeth. All right, that's good. This is good. I put some new grease on. We're going to just go right installing that again. That's why I left the pieces right there. That looks like a sealed bearing there. You normally don't need to do much with a sealed bearing, but I generally will put some lubrication on it anyway, just in case it might slip in. And now we can go ahead. We have the collar for the anti-reverse. I was paying attention. That's the top of the anti-reverse. You don't put oil on an anti-reverse. That's a friction-driven piece, so it needs to stay dry. Got a little bit more dirt in here, so let's take care of that. And that could be what's happening as well. Some of this grease on this could have worked its way into the anti-reverse. That would cause a skip too. So you're just trying to eliminate, and a good servicing will do that. Okay, we put the oil back in there. We've got this back on. We can't install the rotor at this point, but we can reinstall the 3 screws that tie down that assembly. And they're just using the heads of the screw as the tie for that bearing. Kind of a wedge fit. And remember what we said, all 3 screws are the same, so they don't matter which position you put them back in. If there was one that was long or short, you would want to pay attention to that and go ahead and put it back in the same place. Now, one thing I don't like about white cases, you can see this white case is getting pretty greased up there. I wear a protective glove on my hand, and one of the reasons for that is to keep those greases off my hand. Well, one of the things that happens is that it'll transfer all those greases to whatever is next, right? Kind of path of least resistance. In this case, you got a transfer there that's pushing it down. So it's going to the white. We'll clean that up later. All right, that takes care of that. I guess I could grab a paper towel and get some of that off there. So I think we've taken care of the top. We've cleaned up all those gears. We're going to go ahead and start a reassembly now. So I think first thing you want to do, find that red dot, because that's what you're going to line up. And if you notice that red dot, it's coming up right between two teeth. That's your red dot. Comes up between two teeth. That's the one where you want to put the red tooth off the main gear in the back there. So we've got that. Let's go put a little bit of grease on the back end. Kind of oil the bearing. The crosswind block gets grease everywhere. Gets it on the back, on the teeth, which are going to intersect with the main gear. Gets it on the face where that crosswind block is going to ride. And then we can go ahead and put that down. I'm going to just take that grease off that one point there because I need to see that point as we go to reinstall. I drove myself crazy the first time that I ran into an elliptical gear. It just, I couldn't figure it out. So I'm passing this along to you so that you can figure it out. All right, that goes there. This is the one for that. And we'll tighten that up. Just like that. Next up then, we want to put some grease into the channel where this is going to slide. And you can get a light grease on these posts that they're going to slide up and down on. If you over grease it, it's just going to swing it out. So just be careful with that. Find your points that it rests in. Make sure that you're inside those two carriers, that you're in below, and that you're over the stud. That's the important part here. Now this is the fun part. Find the red line. You're going to have to look at it kind of I need to advance that just a little bit the way it's going in. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but you got to get this one right. And we got it right. There you go. Okay, so let's put that case back on then. We've lubricated everything underneath. Got one dirty case here from that. I just changed my glove to kind of stop some of that transfer. I'm going to snap that back in. I think we'll try and just clean that up right now before we get too much further along. Just using a paper towel. We'll come back one final time when we're done here, but for now I can get the majority off. That's all a good thing. I put one screw in the case already. Here's your second one. Let's go tighten them up from below first. And we'll come back up and put the other two in. And then we'll put that bump guard on, the handle and the like, and we should be successful here. I think my candidate for the skip so far is there was an over-tightened handle on it, which may have been kind of interfering in the rotation. There was also a lot of dirt underneath, and we saw that inside the teeth of the pinion gear. And it's quite possible that it built up and skipped when it would hit one of those teeth. So without actually fishing with the reel and kind of understanding the performance behind it, you can only hypothesize as to what it is. It's never certain, but usually a good cleaning will take care of that. All right, so the four are on. I'm going to do just what I did with the other one now. Remember, I started with the flat-bladed screwdriver. I'll just do the final turn with that because it does snug it up better than a Phillips head screwdriver. So this one's got that little trick with the elliptical gear. Kind of interesting. Yeah, see, that one needed to be tightened more. Okay, clean that up. Time to put that bump guard back on. It's got those wings. Make sure that you seat that little portion in below here first, because it's not going to sit in properly if you don't get that first. There should be 2 more screws in my tray. There are. Those are the first 2 screws I took out. They belong to that bump guard. So let's get that on. I just noticed the one just kind of jumped behind the rotor there. We'll go pick that one up. That's one. Here's the other. And this is where that taking the pictures helps. Let's just say you looked into your parts tray and you saw a couple of screws in there and you didn't realize where they belonged. Well, let's go back to the video. Take a look. Now, it doesn't have to be a video. You can do still photography. It doesn't have to be on a camera. It can be on your cell phone or just about anything. You can take a picture, and both that will help you to identify the orientation of the pieces and the where they go in terms of sequence. All right, the rotor goes back on. Next up then is this. Now remember, when we took this off, it was non-traditional. It went off in a clockwise manner or away from you, and so it goes back on in a counterclockwise manner. There's a bearing in that rotor nut, so of course there is. There's 16 bearings. They got to be somewhere. So let's get that one back on. I think I used the 14 millimeter for that, so let's go back and just use the open end wrench. Tighten that down. Give it a spin. Make sure everything's working properly. Boy, it's working nicely. Nice and smooth. All right, put the tie down next. So we're kind of reversing the sequence. Remember, we have that little bearing shield in there too. Just reversing the sequence of how we took it apart. And just notice that we have to move that a little bit more to align the holes. Almost. You have to play around with that. You almost have it. That should be it. We have those 2 little screws that'll hold this down. That parts tray should almost be empty at that point. All right. Micro driver and a little bit of glue. These small screws and me don't get along. So let's take care of the first one. This little seal is here to keep water out of the reel. The manufacturers are paying more attention now to the invasive water, and this reel's pretty nicely sealed. That'd be another reason why you would kind of hide the screws in the case to take that pressure off the water intrusion. All right, this one should go on again, kind of counter-traditional. I'm going to put that on first. That's going to grab inside, and then your handle is going to do the rest. Kind of an interesting design. Most of those handles will just screw right in. This one, a little bit different. Now I can take the handle, load that in. So if you have a reel that needs to be worked on, you don't want to work on it yourself, well, I do repair reels by mail. And if you leave me a note on the business card that follows, I'll be happy to provide you with that repair information. Let's give that a twirl. It's very nice. Okay, got that done. We want to put our spool shims on there. That's going to control the line height, line lay on the spool itself. And then we'll go over and service the spool because we have a potential for having that skip problem being in the drag washers, and we saw a lot of dirt, so it is possible that the drag washers in this reel are dirty, and possible that it is the culprit. Put that off to the side. This one is just a little simple rubber grommet here, so you can pull that off. Then we have our traditional little spring that rides in the groove. It is a spring, so as you go to remove this, please make sure that you hold that spring. Otherwise, you're kind of going to be looking around for it. There we go. That's one. I'm just going to lay these on the table. So this will show me the order that they come out in. And we have felt drag washers. That's okay. If you're running into problems with the felt, you can upgrade these to a carbon tex type of a washer. Here's another one of those little bearings hiding in here. As I mentioned, there's 2 spool bearings. So underneath here we can put a little bit of oil. The inside channel is clear. Felt washers get oil. They must be kept lubricated so that they don't dry up and tear. And the problem that you're going to have with the felt washer under load is if it's dry and you're fighting a big fish, it's going to tear it up. Okuma's not the only one to do this. It's been in Shimano's, the Penn Fierce lines before the Fierce 3 used felt washers. And again, if you find you're tearing them up, that the fishing that you're doing is just eating away at those drag washers because you're using a heavy drag component, then go ahead and switch those over to carbon tex, and I'm sure you can find the acceptable substitute for those. All right, you want to just make sure that those springs are in the clip grooves. I'll just go ahead and put this back on. Yep. So one of the things you need to do here, you can't have that spring where that little rubber grommet's going to go. So you just need to pull it out, move it over a little bit, reposition it. It seems like it just wants to go in that hole there, doesn't it? If you don't put it in where you have that clear hole, and these studs on the seal are not going to sit properly. That's it. Go ahead and put this back on. The drags, I don't think the drags were the problem, but you know what? They were dry, and we did get a report of a skip. So it is possible that they weren't holding right. And if they weren't holding right, well, you could skip in the reel. So there we go. I'll take that down. Give it a final test, and we'll tell them to go take it for a ride, see if it's improved the performance of it. Hopefully it has, and they'll have a lot of fishing days left. I like the reel. I don't think it's poorly designed at all. I like the elliptical gear set up in the reel. I kind of like the way that they've hid the screws. It's a nice touch. Nothing left but to give this one a test. Nice smooth operation. Good bail function. That's it. 16 ball bearings. Hidden screws on the side plates. A smooth operating reel. We've cleaned it up. I think that will take care of the skip. Only time will tell. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Please, everybody, stay safe, stay well, stay watching, and have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.